Kite Park stood at the bridge window of the UES Harmony, watching the stars blur past as they traveled through hyperspace. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life. First contact with an alien civilization. After 30 years as Earth's best diplomat, he finally had the chance to represent all of humanity to the galaxy. The ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the window, Kite saw a massive space station floating in the darkness. It was bigger than any human city, with thousands of lights twinkling across its surface. Ships of strange designs moved around it like insects around a bright lamp. "Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission," said So-Min Lee from her communications station. She was young but brilliant, one of Earth's finest language experts. Her job was to help translate and understand the alien communications. "Put it through," Kite replied, straightening his formal diplomatic uniform. A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking in the alien language they had been studying for months. So-Min quickly translated. "They're giving us permission to dock at Bay 7. They say we should follow the guide ships and not deviate from the flight path." Captain Yunwoo Nam nodded from his command chair. "Understood. Take us in slowly." He had been chosen for this mission because of his calm nature and excellent flying skills. If anything went wrong, they needed someone who could get them home safely. 3 alien ships appeared beside them, sleek and silver with strange symbols on their hulls. They guided the Harmony toward the massive station. As they got closer, Kite could see how truly enormous it was. The docking bay alone could have held 100 ships the size of theirs. "It's incredible," whispered Dong-Hwan Choi, the mission's science advisor. He was recording everything they saw for the scientists back on Earth. "The engineering required to build something this large in space. We're looking at technology that's centuries ahead of ours." The Harmony settled into the docking bay with a soft thud. Through the windows, they could see aliens moving around on the deck. They looked humanoid but taller, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Their faces were angular, with large black eyes that seemed to reflect the station's lights. "Remember the protocol," Kite said to his crew. "We're here to make friends, not to judge or criticize. Every word we say reflects on all of humanity." The airlock hissed open, and Kite stepped out first. The artificial gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth's, and the air smelled different, metallic with a hint of something sweet. A group of aliens waited for them, dressed in elaborate robes of deep purple and gold. The tallest alien stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. "Welcome to Vorthak Prime, humans. I am Sub-Commander Vectis Moral. The High Chancellor is eager to meet with you." Kite bowed slightly, as was customary in human diplomacy. "Thank you for receiving us. I am Ambassador Kite Park, representing the United Earth Council. We are honored to be here." Vectis studied him with those large black eyes. "Your species is smaller than we expected, but no matter. Follow me." They walked through corridors that stretched impossibly high above their heads. The walls were covered in what looked like living metal that shifted and flowed as they passed. Other aliens moved through the hallways. Some looked like the Thakari who had greeted them, while others were completely different species. Kite saw beings that looked like walking trees, creatures with scales and multiple heads, and things that seemed to be made of pure energy. "So many different species," So-Min whispered to him. "They really do rule a galactic empire." The throne room was vast beyond imagination. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above, and the walls were covered in holographic displays showing star maps and alien worlds. At the far end sat High Chancellor Molvek Thane on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal. As they approached, Kaite could see that Molvek was ancient even by Thakari standards. His blue skin was marked with intricate patterns, and his forearms were adorned with golden bands that pulsed with their own light. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber. "So, the humans have finally come to us," Molvek said, leaning forward to study them. "You are young as a species, barely out of your home system. Most races contact us within decades of achieving spaceflight. You took longer than most." Kaite stepped forward, fighting the urge to be intimidated by the alien's presence. "Your Excellence, we come seeking friendship and trade between our peoples. Earth has much to offer in terms of art, culture, and scientific knowledge." Molvek's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "Offer? Young ambassador, you misunderstand your position. You are here to receive our generous offer of integration into the Empire. All species must find their proper place in the galactic order." "Integration?" Kaite asked carefully. "Could you explain what that means?" "Tomorrow we will discuss the details," Molvek replied, waving one of his hands dismissively. "Tonight, you will be our guests. Rest well, humans. Tomorrow your species takes its first step toward civilization." As they were led to their quarters, Kaite felt a growing unease. The way Molvek had spoken about integration didn't sound like a partnership between equals. It sounded more like a demand for submission. Their rooms were luxurious but felt more like prison cells. The windows showed only the depths of space, and Kaite noticed that the doors could only be opened from the outside. He gathered his crew in his room to discuss what they had observed. "Did you see how the other species reacted to the Thakari?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. They kept their heads down, avoided eye contact. "That's not how equals behave." Donghwan nodded grimly. "The technology gap is enormous, but there's something else. The way they talked about proper places and civilization, I think they see themselves as naturally superior to everyone else." So Min had been analyzing the translations all day. Their language has specific words for different levels of beings. There's no word that means equal when referring to different species, only words that mean higher or lower in status. Kaite stared out at the stars, thinking about Earth and the billions of people depending on this mission's success. "Whatever they propose tomorrow, we listen carefully. But we make no promises until we understand exactly what they're asking for." None of them slept well that night. Outside their windows, the vast Thakari Empire continued its business, unaware that tomorrow would begin a chain of events that would shake the galaxy to its core. In the morning, Sub-Commander Vectis came to escort them back to the throne room. As they walked through the corridors, Kaite noticed more details he had missed the day before. The other species they passed moved quickly and quietly, never speaking unless spoken to by a Thakari. Some bore what looked like scars or marks of ownership. The throne room was filled with Thakari officials this time, all watching as the humans approached the crystal throne. Molvek looked pleased, as if he was about to deliver good news. "Humans," he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber, "the Empire has decided to be generous with your species. We offer you integration as a Class 5 civilization, with all the benefits and responsibilities that entails." Kaite felt his stomach drop. In all their preparations, Earth's xenologists had theorized that any advanced civilization might have classification systems. Class 5 sounded low on whatever scale the Thakari used. "Your Excellence," Kaite said carefully, "we would be honored to hear the details of this generous offer." Molvek smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Of course. Let me explain how your species will serve the Empire. Molvek Thane leaned back on his crystal throne, clearly enjoying the moment. Around him, dozens of Thakari officials watched with what Kite was beginning to recognize as predatory interest. The silence in the vast throne room felt heavy and threatening. Class 5 integration is quite reasonable for such a young species, Molvek began, his four arms gesturing grandly. Many civilizations start much lower. Your humans show promise, so we are being generous. Kite kept his expression neutral, though his heart was racing. We are grateful for your consideration, Your Excellence. Could you explain what Class 5 integration involves? Naturally, Molvek's smile grew wider. First, all human military. Vessels must be surrendered to Imperial forces. This is standard procedure. No Class 5 civilization needs weapons when the Empire provides protection. Captain Hyunwoo shifted slightly beside Kaite, but said nothing. They had expected this might be part of any agreement, though the complete surrender of Earth's defensive fleet was troubling. Second, Molvek continued, human children born after integration will undergo genetic modification to better serve Imperial needs. Your species shows excellent potential for manual labor and technical work. A few simple changes will make them more efficient and compliant. So Min Lee's breath caught audibly. Kite felt ice forming in his stomach. They were talking about changing human children, making them into something else entirely. Third, Earth's population will be relocated to designated worlds better suited for Class 5 beings. Your current planet is too valuable to waste on such purposes. It will be converted to industrial use for the Empire. The words hit Kite like physical blows. They wanted to take Earth itself, force humanity from their home world and scatter them across alien planets. Finally, Molvek said, his voice taking on a tone of absolute authority, all human technology, resources, and knowledge will be transferred to Imperial control. Class 5. Beings have no need for advanced technology. Simple tools are sufficient for your new roles. The throne room fell silent except for the quiet humming of the station's systems. Kite looked around at the assembled Thakari officials, seeing satisfaction and amusement on their alien faces. They clearly expected him to accept these terms immediately. Your Excellence, Kite said slowly, choosing his words with extreme care. These terms are extensive. On Earth, we believe in the concept of partnership between equals. We had hoped to contribute to galactic civilization while maintaining our independence and dignity. The reaction was immediate. Several Thakari officials made harsh sounds that Kite's translator couldn't interpret. Molvek's expression changed from amusement to something colder and more dangerous. Partnership? Molvek repeated the word as if it tasted bad. Ambassador, I fear you misunderstand the nature of galactic civilization. There are no partnerships between species of different classes. The strong lead, the weak follow. This is the natural order. But surely, Kite pressed, knowing he was walking into dangerous territory, different species can contribute different strengths. Humanity has achieved faster-than-light travel independently. We have arts, sciences, and perspectives that might benefit the Empire. Sub-Commander Vectis stepped forward from his position near the throne. Ambassador, your species developed FTL travel through luck and accident. Any civilization stumbles onto basic technologies eventually. This does not make you equal to races that have perfected these sciences for millennia. Donghuan Choi finally spoke up, his scientific training overriding diplomatic caution. With respect, our development of FTL technology involved solving several theoretical problems that your own scientists considered impossible. The mathematical proofs alone represent significant advances in— Silence, Molvek's voice boomed through the chamber. You dare suggest that primitives from an uncharted world have surpassed Thakari science? This is exactly the kind of arrogance that must be corrected through proper integration. Kitai placed a calming hand on Donghuan's arm. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and he needed to regain control before it became a complete disaster. Your Excellence, please forgive us. We are new to galactic politics and customs. On Earth, we value discussion and debate as ways to reach better understanding. We meant no disrespect. Molvek studied him for a long moment. Perhaps. Your ignorance can be excused once, but understand this, Ambassador. The terms I have outlined are not suggestions for negotiation. They are the standard integration protocols that every Class 5 civilization accepts. There are no alternatives. I understand your position, Kite replied carefully. However, I must request time to return to Earth and discuss these terms with our leadership. Such important decisions require the input of our entire government. Another wave of harsh sounds came from the assembled officials. Molvek's 4 eyes narrowed dangerously. Return to Earth. No species has ever rejected integration terms to discuss them with their home government. This is unprecedented and insulting. Your Excellence, I assure you that no insult is intended. Earth's government sent me here with specific instructions to report back before making any commitments. This is simply how our political system works. Vectis leaned close to Molvek's throne and whispered something in the Thakari language. Soman was translating quietly for the others. He's saying that humans are showing signs of dangerous independence and suggesting that examples might need to be made. Molvek waved Vectis away and fixed his gaze on Kitai. Ambassador, let me be very clear. In the 3,000-year history of the Thakari Empire, no species has ever refused integration. Those who have attempted to resist or delay have faced consequences. Severe consequences. The threat was unmistakable. Kitai felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool temperature of the throne room. But he also felt something else. A growing anger at the assumption that humanity would simply roll over and accept enslavement. Your Excellence, I am not refusing anything. I am simply following the protocols of my government. Surely, the mighty Thakari Empire can allow a few weeks for proper diplomatic procedures. Weeks? Molvek's voice rose to a dangerous pitch. You ask for weeks to consider the generous offer of the Empire? This borders on direct insult to imperial authority. Captain Hyun Woo stepped slightly forward, positioning himself between Kite and the Thakari officials. His hand didn't move toward his sidearm, but the gesture was clear enough. Perhaps, Kite said, fighting to keep his voice steady, we could reach a compromise. Allow us to send a message to Earth explaining the situation. While we wait for their response, we could discuss the details of integration in more depth. This would give both sides time to ensure the transition goes smoothly. Molvek was silent for several long minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold as space itself. You may send one message to your home world. You have 48 hours to receive a response accepting our terms. If your government attempts to refuse or negotiate, there will be consequences that will make acceptance seem merciful by comparison. Thank you, Your Excellence. We will contact Earth immediately. See that you do. Guards will escort you back to your quarters. You will remain there until your government's response arrives. Do not attempt to leave your assigned area or access your ship without permission." As they were led from the throne room, Kitai could hear the Thakari officials talking among themselves in their harsh language. Somin translated quietly as they walked. "They're saying that humans are showing worrying signs of resistance. Some are suggesting that an example should be made regardless of what Earth decides. Others think we should be given a chance to comply before more drastic measures are taken." Back in their quarters, the four humans sat in grim silence for several minutes. Finally, Hyunwoo spoke. "They're not negotiating. They're dictating terms of surrender." "Complete surrender," Donghwan added bitterly. "They want to turn our children into slave labor, steal our planet, and erase everything that makes us human." Kite was already composing the message to Earth in his mind. "We need to be very careful how we phrase this. If the Thakari intercept and understand our real meaning, things could go badly very quickly." So Min was setting up the communication equipment. "What do we tell them? That first contact was successful and we're about to become slaves to a galactic empire?" "We tell them the truth," Kaite said firmly, "but we tell it in a way that Earth's leaders will understand. President Young-Sik Han and the Council aren't fools. They'll read between the lines." As Kaite began recording the message that would change human history forever, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Thakari had made a serious miscalculation. They seemed to believe that all species would react the same way to threats and ultimatums, but they had never encountered humans before. They had never dealt with a species that had fought wars against itself for thousands of years, that had built its entire civilization on the idea that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The Thakari were about to learn that some species don't respond to bullying the way they expected. The response from Earth came exactly 47 hours and 36 minutes after Kaite sent his carefully worded message. He knew the moment Sub-Commander Vectis entered their quarters with a squad of armed guards that the answer had not been what the Thakari expected. "Ambassador," Vectis said, his voice carrying a cold satisfaction, "your government's response has been most enlightening." Kaite stood slowly, keeping his hands visible and his movements calm. "I trust Earth's message was clear in its diplomatic language." "Oh, it was very clear indeed." Vectis held up a small device that projected President Young-Sik Han's holographic image. The message began to play. "Ambassador Park," the president's voice filled the room. "The United Earth Council has carefully considered the Thakari Empire's integration proposal. While we appreciate their interest in humanity's development, we must respectfully decline terms that would compromise human sovereignty and freedom. We propose instead a gradual cultural exchange program that would allow both civilizations to benefit from peaceful cooperation." The hologram continued, but Vectis shut it off with a sharp gesture. "Decline. Your species dares to decline the generous offer of the Empire." Captain Hyunwoo moved closer to Kite's side. "Sir, our government is simply following standard diplomatic protocols. Surely negotiations can continue." "There are no negotiations," Vectis snarled. "There is acceptance or there is conquest. Your species has chosen conquest." More guards filed into the room carrying weapons that hummed with energy. So-Min Lee backed toward the wall, her face pale with fear. Donghwan Choi stepped protectively in front of her. "Sub-Commander," Kite said, fighting to keep his voice steady, "we are diplomats under the protection of diplomatic immunity. Harming us would violate every civilized law of—" "Civilized?" Vectis laughed harshly. "You speak of civilization while rejecting the most basic principle of galactic order? You are primitives who do not understand your place." but you will learn. The guards raised their weapons. Kite felt time slow down as he realized what was about to happen. Wait, please. If you harm us, Earth will never surrender. You'll have to fight a war against a species that will never forget what you did here. Exactly. Vectis smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. When your dismembered remains arrive on Earth, your leaders will understand the cost of defying us. They will surrender immediately rather than risk the same fate. You're wrong, Hyunwoo said quietly. You don't understand humans at all. The energy weapons fired, but instead of killing them instantly, the beams seemed designed to cause maximum pain while keeping them conscious. Kite screamed as agony tore through his body, dropping him to his knees. Around him, his crew was experiencing the same torture. Phase 1, Vectis announced to his guards. Take them to the medical bay. The High Chancellor wants them kept alive for as long as possible. The next hours blurred into a nightmare of pain and horror that Kite's mind tried desperately to block out. The Thakari Medical Bay was equipped with technology that could keep a being alive and conscious through injuries that should have been instantly fatal. Dr. Kelthak Vorn, the station's chief medical officer, explained the process with clinical detachment. We will remove parts of your body systematically while maintaining all life functions. Each amputation will be recorded in detail for transmission to your home world. The process can continue for many days if we are careful. So Min was screaming as they prepared her for the first procedure. Please, she begged. We didn't do anything wrong. We were just following orders. Following orders to defy the Empire, Doctor, Vorn replied. This is a lesson that must be taught clearly. Your species will learn that resistance brings only suffering. They started with Kite's left hand. The pain was beyond anything he had ever imagined, but worse than the physical agony was listening to his crew suffer the same fate. Captain Hyunwoo tried to stay strong, but even his military training couldn't prepare him for this level of torture. Why? Donghwan gasped between screams. Why are you doing this? We came in peace. Peace? Vectis watched the proceedings with obvious pleasure. Peace exists only when all beings accept their proper place. Your species refused that place, so you will serve as an example to ensure others do not make the same mistake. Hours passed. The Thakari doctors were skilled at their horrible work, keeping their victims alive and conscious through procedures that should have killed them. They recorded everything, making sure the cameras captured every moment of pain and terror. Kite found himself thinking about Earth, about his wife Mi-young and their daughter Yoonji. He hoped they would never see these recordings. But he also hoped that Earth's leaders would understand what they were truly facing. This wasn't just conquest. It was the complete domination of one species by another. Ambassador, Dr. Vorn said as he prepared for another amputation. Your government still has time to reconsider. One message accepting our terms would end this immediately. Through the haze of pain, Kite managed to speak. Go. To hell. The doctor seemed puzzled. Hell? I am not familiar with this term. You will be, Kite whispered. Captain Hyunwoo had lost consciousness twice, but they kept reviving him. Each time he woke up, he found himself missing more pieces of his body. But each time he looked at his torturers with the same defiant hatred. So Min lasted longer than anyone expected. Even as they systematically destroyed her body, she continued, translating the Thakari conversations for the others. Her final words were a curse in perfect Thakari that made several guards step back in shock. Donghuan spoke about Earth until the very end, describing blue skies and green forests, music and art, the laughter of children playing in parks. He painted pictures with words of everything that the Thakari would never understand or appreciate. The torture continued for 3 days. By the end, the 4 humans were barely recognizable as the people who had come seeking peace. But throughout the ordeal, none of them begged for mercy. None of them asked Earth to surrender. Remarkable, Dr. Vorn commented to his assistants. Most species break within hours. These humans maintained their defiance even as we dismantled them piece by piece. It means nothing, Vectis replied. When their government sees what we have done, they will submit immediately. No species can endure the thought of this happening to their entire population. When it was finally over, they carefully packaged the remains in specially designed containers that would preserve them during the journey to Earth. Each container was labeled with the victim's name and a detailed description of how they had died. The UES Harmony was loaded with its grim cargo and programmed to return to Earth under automated control. A simple message was attached. This is the fate of those who refuse the Thakari Empire. Submit within 30 days or face the complete extinction of your species. As the ship departed Vorthak Prime, High Chancellor Molvek Thane watched from his throne room. How long before they surrender? He asked Vectis. Based on historical patterns, no more than a week after the ship arrives. Seeing what happened to their diplomats will break their spirit completely. And if they are foolish enough to resist further, then we will demonstrate our power by destroying a few of their cities. After that, they will beg for the privilege of Class 5 integration. Neither of them understood the fundamental mistake they had just made. In their thousands of years of conquest, the Thakari had never encountered a species like humanity. They had never faced beings who responded to atrocity not with submission, but with a rage that would burn across the galaxy. The Harmony traveled through hyperspace, carrying its horrible cargo toward Earth. With each passing hour, it carried them closer to a war that would shake the foundations of the Thakari Empire. In their arrogance, the Thakari had just created their own worst enemy. They had taken Earth's best and brightest, people who had come, in peace seeking friendship, and turned them into martyrs whose deaths would ignite a fury unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ship's automated systems recorded everything as it traveled toward its destination. In just a few days, the leaders of Earth would see exactly what the Thakari Empire was capable of. And then they would show the galaxy what humanity was capable of in return. The age of human vengeance was about to begin. Admiral Jin-A Yoon stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the UES Harmony approach through the viewport. Something was wrong. The ship wasn't responding to communications, and its flight pattern was erratic, like it was being controlled by automated systems rather than a human crew. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Minho Park from the communication station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Harmony. It's not from Ambassador Park or his crew." Put it through. The voice that filled the observation deck was cold and alien. "People of Earth, your diplomats attempted to defy the Thakari Empire. This transmission contains evidence of their fate. Consider carefully what resistance costs." Jin-A felt ice form in her stomach. "Cut the transmission. Get me President Young-Sik Han immediately." 20 minutes later, the Harmony docked at Luna Station. The boarding party that entered the ship found it empty, except for 4 sealed containers in the cargo hold. Each container bore a name: Ki-tae, Park, Hyunwoo Nam, So-min Lee, Dong-hwan Choi. The contents of those containers would haunt everyone who saw them for the rest of their lives. President Young-Sik Han arrived at Luna Station 4 hours later aboard the fastest shuttle available. He found Admiral Jin A in the station's secure briefing room, her face gray with shock and fury. "How bad is it?" he asked without preamble. "Sir, they didn't just kill our people. They tortured them for days, kept them alive through procedures. That—" Jin A stopped, unable to continue. "Show me. Mr. President, I strongly advise—" "Show me everything." The recordings lasted 3 hours. President Han watched every minute without speaking, his expression growing harder with each passing moment. When it was over, he sat in silence for nearly 10 minutes before speaking. "Call an emergency session of the United Earth Council. Every member, no exceptions. And get me General Tae-min Lim." "Sir," Jin A said carefully, "what are your orders regarding the Thakari ultimatum?" Young-Sik Han looked at her with eyes that had turned cold as Arctic ice. "Admiral, have you ever heard of Protocol 7? Jin A felt her blood chill. Every high-ranking military officer knew about Protocol 7, though none had ever hoped to see it implemented. "Sir, Protocol 7 is for extinction-level threats to the human species." "Admiral, what would you call this?" The United Earth Council convened in emergency session 12 hours later. Representatives from every nation, colony, and space habitat attended either in person or via quantum link. The chamber fell into absolute silence as President Han played the recordings from Vorthak Prime. When it was over, the silence stretched for nearly 5 minutes. Finally, Chancellor Wei Ming-chen of the Asian Federation spoke. "They recorded everything. They wanted us to see this. They expect us to surrender," added Prime Minister Sarah O'Brien of the European Union, her voice shaking with rage. "They think this will break our will to resist." Dr. Sung-Ho Kim, Earth's leading xenopsychologist, stood from his observers section. "Mr. President, may I address the Council?" "Dr. Kim, please." "Members of the Council, I have studied the Thakari for months preparing for this mission. They have a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. In their society, displays of superior force lead to immediate submission. They have never encountered a species that responds to atrocity with increased resistance." "What are you saying, Doctor?" asked President Han. "I'm saying they just made the worst possible mistake. Instead of breaking our will, they have given us something that unites every human being on Earth and beyond, a shared enemy that deserves nothing but complete destruction." General Tae-min Lim stood and activated a holographic display. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present Protocol 7. The display showed military installations around the solar system, research facilities, shipyards, and weapons production centers. But these weren't the normal defensive preparations the Council was familiar with. Protocol 7 was designed for exactly this scenario, General Lim explained, when humanity faces extinction from a technologically superior enemy. It removes all ethical and moral constraints on our military actions. Every prohibited weapon, every banned research project, every tactic too horrible for civilized warfare becomes not only permitted, but mandatory." "What exactly are you proposing?" asked Chancellor Chen. "Total war. We mobilize every human being, convert every factory to military production, and develop weapons specifically designed to cause maximum psychological damage to the enemy. We don't just fight to win, we fight to ensure that anyone who threatens humanity thinks twice before doing it again." Admiral Jin A activated another display. Our intelligence suggests the Thakari Empire controls approximately 47 star systems with a total population of over 200 billion beings. Their technology is superior to ours, but they have weaknesses. Such as? President Han asked. They have never fought a total war. Their conquests have always involved quick surrenders after displays of force. They have no experience with an enemy that refuses to give up, that gets stronger and more vicious with each defeat. Dr. Kim nodded grimly. More importantly, their entire civilization is built on the assumption of their own superiority. A species that successfully resists them doesn't just threaten their empire, it threatens their fundamental worldview. What about their other subject species? Asked Prime Minister O'Brien. That's the key, Admiral Jinneh replied. If we can prove that the Thakari can be defeated, those species might rebel. The empire could collapse from within. President Han looked around the chamber at the faces of Earth's leaders. He saw anger, determination, and something else. A cold, calculating fury that reminded him why humanity had survived so many wars against itself. Dr. Kim, in your professional opinion, can we defeat them? Mr. President, the Thakari are technologically superior and vastly outnumber us. In a conventional war, we would lose within months. But this won't be a conventional war. When humans are pushed to extinction, we become something that civilized species have no defense against. Explain. We become monsters, sir, and sometimes monsters are exactly what the situation requires. The vote to implement Protocol 7 was unanimous. Within hours, every major news network on Earth and the colonies was broadcasting the recordings from Vorthak Prime. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Recruitment centers were mobbed by volunteers. Factories began retooling for military production without waiting for government orders. Research universities started dusting off theoretical weapons projects that had been banned for decades. But the most significant change was psychological. Humanity had always been divided by nationality, religion, politics, and economics. Within days of seeing what had been done to Ki Tae Park and his crew, those divisions began to disappear. There was only one identity that mattered now: human. The Thakari had expected their demonstration of power to create fear and submission. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous, a united humanity with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. General Lim stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff as they planned humanity's response. Ladies and gentlemen, our enemy made one crucial error. They assumed we would react like every other species they have encountered. They assumed we would choose survival over dignity. What's our first move? Asked Admiral Jinneh. We make them pay for every single second of pain they inflicted on our people, and we make sure the entire galaxy knows that attacking humanity comes with a price that no civilized species is willing to pay. President Han addressed the world in a broadcast that would be remembered for centuries. Citizens of Earth and all, human colonies, we have seen the true face of the Thakari Empire. They offer us slavery and call it civilization. They torture our ambassadors and call it justice. They demand our surrender and call it mercy. He paused, looking directly into the camera. I have one message for the Thakari Empire. You wanted to show us the cost of resistance. Now we will show you the cost of atrocity. You returned our envoy in pieces. We will return your empire the same way. The war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin. 6 months after the UES Harmony returned to Earth, the first human war fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Thakari territory. Admiral Jin A-yoon stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, watching the alien star system spread out before them through the viewport. "Admiral," reported Captain Wan Bin Seo from the tactical station, "we're detecting 17 Thakari vessels in system. Mix of military and civilian ships. Any response to our arrival?" "They're trying to communicate, but we're maintaining radio silence as ordered." Jin'e nodded. The time for communication had ended the moment the Thakari returned Kite Park and his crew in pieces. Now there was only justice. Target the orbital stations first. I want complete destruction, not just damage. The human fleet had been designed with one purpose: to inflict maximum psychological damage on the Thakari while demonstrating humanity's capacity for total war. The ships were armed with weapons that had been banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. "Quantum disruptors are charged and ready," reported Lieutenant Ji-hoon Kim from the weapons console. "Fire! The quantum disruptors didn't just destroy their targets, they unmade them at the atomic level, reducing entire space stations to clouds of free-floating particles." The Thakari vessels tried to flee, but the human ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Empire had ever faced. "Admiral," Captain Seo said, reading from his tactical display, "the planet below has several billion inhabitants. Our intelligence indicates it's a major cultural center for the Empire. Then they'll understand the message we're about to send. Begin orbital bombardment. Target every monument, every cultural site, every building of historical significance. Ma'am, there will be massive civilian casualties." "Captain, did the Thakari worry about civilian casualties when they tortured our diplomats? Did they show mercy to So Min Lee when she begged for her life?" The bombardment began. Human ships rained down weapons that had been specifically designed to cause terror as well as destruction. Buildings didn't just collapse. They burned with fires that couldn't be extinguished. Ancient monuments that had stood for millennia were reduced to radioactive glass. But the most terrifying aspect of the human attack wasn't the destruction itself. It was the coordination. Every shot was precisely targeted to maximize psychological impact. The humans had studied Thakari culture for months, identifying exactly what would cause the most trauma to their collective psyche. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from the planetary government. Ignore them. Continue bombardment until every cultural site on the planet is destroyed." While the fleet devastated the planet below, human special forces teams were carrying out targeted operations throughout the system. Captain Min-woo Park led one such team aboard a Thakari research station. "Remember the mission," he told his squad as they prepared to board. "We're not here to take prisoners or gather intelligence. We're here to send a message." The Thakari researchers on the station had never experienced combat. They surrendered immediately when the humans burst through their airlock, but the humans didn't accept their surrender. "Please," begged the lead researcher, a elderly Thakari named Dr. Nethys Cole, "we are scientists, not soldiers. We have done nothing to harm your species." "You're citizens of an empire that tortures diplomats," Min-woo replied coldly. "That makes you complicit." The humans left the station intact, but filled it with recordings of Kite Park's torture. They also left behind carefully placed images showing exactly what had been done to the human diplomatic team. When rescue ships arrived, they would find a space station full of traumatized survivors who would never forget what they had seen. This pattern was repeated throughout the Thakari system. The humans didn't just attack military targets. They systematically destroyed everything the Thakari held sacred while making sure survivors understood exactly why it was happening. News of the attack spread through the Empire faster than the human fleet could travel. On Vorthak Prime, High Chancellor Molvek Thane called an emergency session of the Imperial Council. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "The humans are a primitive species. They should have surrendered immediately after seeing what we did to their diplomats." Sub-Commander Vectis studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. "Your Excellence, the human ships are using weapons that violate every galactic treaty on civilized warfare. Quantum disruptors, psychic warfare devices, bioweapons designed to cause maximum suffering before death. They're fighting like barbarians," spat another council member. "No," said Admiral Korthak Vess, the Empire's military commander. "They're fighting like a species that has nothing left to lose. This is total war, and we have no experience with such tactics." Molvek's four arms gestured angrily. "Deploy the Imperial fleet. Crush these humans before they can spread their rebellion to other systems." "Your Excellence," Admiral Vess said carefully, "there's another problem. 3 of our client species have declared independence and are requesting human military support. The Zelkari, the Nithros, and the Veltar are all in open revolt." The news hit the Council like a physical blow. For 3,000 years, no subject species had dared rebel against the Empire. Now, within months of humanity's first attack, entire civilizations were throwing off Thakari rule. "How?" Molvek whispered. Dr. Seyoung-ho Kim could have answered that question. He was aboard the human fleet, analyzing Thakari psychology and designing new tactics to exploit their weaknesses. The answer was simple. The Empire was built on fear, and humanity had proven that the Thakari could be hurt. "Admiral," Dr. Kim reported to Jin A as they prepared to jump to the next system, "our psychological warfare is working better than expected. Intelligence indicates that panic is spreading throughout the Empire. They've never faced an enemy that gets stronger and more vicious after being hurt." "What about their military response?" "They're mobilizing their main fleet, but they're making tactical errors. They're trying to fight us like they would any other enemy, with overwhelming force and demands for surrender. They don't understand that we're not trying to conquer territory. We're trying to destroy their will to fight." The human fleet's next target was the Thakari military academy world of Korthak Prime. This time, they didn't just destroy buildings. They made sure to broadcast the entire attack across the Empire's communication networks. Captain Tae-hyun Lee led the ground assault personally. His soldiers moved through the academy like avenging angels, showing no mercy to cadets or instructors, but they made sure to record everything, ensuring that the galaxy would see exactly what happened to those who served the Empire that had tortured humanity's diplomats. "This is for Kite Park," Lee said as he stood over the Academy's commandant. "This is for So-min Lee. This is for Captain Hyunwoo Nam and Dr. Dong-hwan Choi." With each name, his soldiers executed another Thakari officer. The recordings were broadcast throughout the Empire with a simple message. "This is what happens to those who serve an empire that tortures diplomats. Surrender now, or face the same fate." The psychological impact was devastating. Thakari military units began surrendering or deserting rather than face the humans in battle. Stories spread of human soldiers who fought with suicidal fury, who seemed to feel no fear of death, who grew more dangerous the more they were hurt. But the most terrifying stories were about human intelligence operations. Teams led by officers like Major Eugene Choi infiltrated Thakari worlds not to gather information, but to leave behind evidence of what the Empire had done to Earth's diplomats. They made sure every citizen of the Empire knew exactly what their government was capable of. "The humans are everywhere," reported one Thakari intelligence officer. "They're not trying to hide. They want us to know they're there. They want us to live in fear. 6 months after the war began, Admiral Vess brought devastating news to the Imperial Council. Your Excellence, we have lost control of 17 systems. 43 client species are now in open revolt. Our military is suffering massive desertions, and civilian morale has collapsed completely. How many humans are we facing? Molvek demanded. Intelligence estimates suggest no more than 10 million human soldiers total, but they're fighting with weapons and tactics that no civilized species would use. They've turned warfare itself into a weapon of terror. Then we will show them that the Empire can be just as ruthless. Order the complete destruction of the human home system. Your Excellence, Vess said quietly, our main fleet is currently trapped in the Proxima system by human forces. Early, reports suggest they're using some kind of new weapon that turns our own ships against us. The weapon Vess was referring to was humanity's latest innovation, a computer virus specifically designed to exploit Thakari ship systems. But the virus didn't just disable the ships, it forced them to broadcast recordings of Kaite Park's torture to their own crews. By the time the Thakari fleet broke free from the trap, half their crews had mutinied rather than continue serving an empire capable of such atrocities. Dr. Kim's analysis had been correct. The Thakari had built their empire on the assumption that superior force would always triumph over resistance. They had never encountered a species that became more dangerous when threatened with extinction. As reports continued to flood in of human victories and Thakari defeats,